Hello, Pirate community and Pirate family, and thank you for joining this video presentation, which is going to allow me to share extensive amount of information regarding what we're calling a 5-year district plan. Obviously, over the past 18 months, we've been working through just the COVID situation, the pandemic, all the many challenges that come our way. But like any quality organization, and specifically here for Pekin Community Schools, there's still a lot of work that we have to do just from the educational standpoint and from a school district standpoint to make sure that we're staying strong financially, making sure we're doing everything we can to help promote and support strong academic excellence. And that hard work has never stopped, and it's been ongoing. And some of it's slowed down, naturally, just given what we've had to work through. But at the same time, we're continuing to move forward. We can't afford to stay still. We can't afford to stay complacent. And obviously, the financial challenges we've had in this community in this district for the past decade has been well documented. Something we've worked through, something we've been very transparent with. But at the same time, be able to share our successes. And just recently, in the past month, be able to share the success that we've been able to take advantage of the pandemic, and just through strategic resource management, through good news coming from the state in terms of the state appropriately supporting education here, that we're out of deficit. We have a fund balance of 650,000, but we can't rest on those laurels because there's still a lot of work to do, and we have to make sure that we're planning for the future for whatever that may be. And we do have data, and we do have an outlook for what the future may hold for us here in Pekin Community Schools. And so we need to make sure that we're being diligent and in all facets of our organization to make sure we're putting Pekin Community Schools in the best possible position to be successful for our community, for our students, for our families, and for our staff. And so this is a broad and a very detailed the presentation, and it is lengthy, but I also just want to make sure that I'm sharing all the information I'm sharing with our stakeholders here within the district, to those out in our community, to our board, so everybody has the same information. So you're more than welcome to watch it in segments over a period of time. And this is not meant to be a short, succinct presentation, but something that's very thorough, and once again, provides a lens into the work we've been involved in, our rationale, the data that we're using, and really what our thought process is. So I'm gonna go ahead and start by sharing my screen, and just give me a second as I do that to the presentation that I'm going to be using with you. And as you will see here as it's loading up, phase one, as we're referring to, of a 5-year district plan, and really taking a look at 5-year increments. And the reason we do that is because that's when we look at our enrollment forecast and the enrollment picture that we have given to us. That's kind of the barometer that we're using. And enrollment obviously is an important part of our planning, structurally, financially, and educationally. So this is phase one that we're referring to through this. And the agenda that I have for this presentation, as you can see in front of you, is just talking a little bit about our process, sharing the process that we've used to get us to this point here, then spending a little more time in phase one, next steps, and then just facts. And this really, the FAQs is a working document, some of the things that we've used for our staff specifically who may be impacted by this. And so that's the agenda that I have moving forward. And so let's go ahead and start by talking about our process. And the process starts with the team of educators that we've had be part of these conversations and the work. And we refer to as our district leadership team. We call it the DLT. And this work, as you'll see from the date, started all the way back to last March. But this is a group that consists of folks K-12. Everybody is represented in terms of our school districts, and even a Board of Education member. But you can see the list of names. This is not something that myself individually, or my assistant superintendent, Basha Keeler, who's been really key in helping facilitate and lead this work, that we've done in isolation. We've actually done it in terms of working alongside and really getting input and feedback from this team and direction. So I just wanted to let you, everybody know that this is a comprehensive group of individuals that have been great in terms of being part of this process. And as I referred to, this is something that we've been working on for well over the past year. And even though the DLT work started back in last March of 2021, the conversations, the work we've been having here at district level have been occurring for some time, well over a year. And so, because we're always looking at trying to be visionaries, looking at what's coming up ahead. So we meet monthly, and as you can see, those are just the dates that we've been working together as a district leadership team. And really, just to understand the purpose of this team is really to help guide the district in moving forward. And as I stated before, from a financial standpoint, academically, and structurally. We've been intentional with having representation that's included teachers, principals, central office leaders, our academic coaches, and a member from our Board of Education, but also who is a PCS parent. And so that was intentional in how we constructed that. And I think this is good to know too, is when you have a group that's working, there's 5 levels of decision making that we use to help guide our work, our thinking, so everybody knows their role. And I'm not going to go through and read these, and this slide is here. Obviously, you can pause this at your own convenience to take a look at this, but there's definitely different levels. And for an example, level 1 is a decision that the superintendent or board decides alone. For example, when a snow day has to be called, this is something that I don't pull a whole team together and get a lot of feedback, from teachers and principals and things of that sort, or even the Board of Education. I do get data and I get information from a county level, from the road commission and some of my fellow colleagues. But in the end, I am making that decision alone. It's not a collaborative measure, and a snow day is what we consider a level 1 decision. But here with this process, we're focusing on level 3, and where we're building a consensus with a group, subgroup, or a committee. But in the end, after we get the feedback and we get the input and we get the revisions of that work, the superintendent and or board will have the final say and the approval of that decision. And that's kind of the process that I think it's important for everybody to know with this specific body of work that I'm presenting to you here at this moment. So whenever we venture on into important work, we always have to come back and understand our why. What is our purpose? What is the end goal? What's driving us? And I think often people, have negative emotions when there's change coming because they really don't understand the why of. And so we start formulating our own why, or that bond of trust isn't there, and sometimes our anxiety creates some negative thoughts and perceptions. And so let's just start with our why. Why are we doing what we're doing? And it's really because we truly believe that Pinckney Community Schools is the most valuable resource, and must be the most valuable resource for our students, family, and community. Is that we're a smaller community. The school is a nucleus of everything that goes on here. We are and must be the most valuable resource, first and foremost, for our children's education, but also for our community needs, for our senior citizens, for the needs of our community, whether it's our food banks, it's our clothing closets, it's community education classes, it's preschool. Is that Pinckney Community Schools must be and maintain that value to our community. And we really think in order to do that, we have to continue to transform, that we can't stay stagnant, that we have to continue evolving and staying viable, staying fiscally strong, but more importantly, academically and for our community as a whole. So that's our why. This is what drives us. We know how important we are to our community as a whole. So then we focus on our how. Like, how do we achieve this? So we know that's our why, that's our driver. And how do we do this? And we do this by being financially strong, that strength of our fiscal responsibility, and being stable, and that we can be as stable as we can. Obviously, there's some things in the economic world that influences us, but also through our decision making and our work, that we can be viably stable and financially strong for the long term. So that's an important piece. But that can only also happen through strategic resource management. And when we say resources, we're talking about our human resources, our structural resources, all the things that we have to support the work here. And so, but we have to be very intentional and strategic about how we're going to manage that. And then obviously through our product, which is academic excellence. This is an educational setting. Teaching and learning is our profession. It's what we're experts in. It's what we spend our time refining our craft. And so through academic excellence. And so if we focus on these 3 pillars, these 3 hows, is that we can get to our why, which is that being that strong resource for our community. But here's really where the rubber meets the road. It's the what. This is the work, and this is what we have to concentrate on. And once again, these overlap, and we have our finances. This is our continuing work, and I shared the fruits of our labor recently with the great news about our budget. Enrollment, these two connect. Obviously, our revenue comes in through enrollment, but also how do we increase that? How do we market it? How do we, for a great resource to our community, and we attract those who are moving to the area to make sure that they call Pinckney Community Schools home. Um, we have to continually monitor our resources. Once again, I stated our human, financial, and our structural. Structural is the buildings that we have and everything that we have, from our grounds to our buses to our buildings, are those structural resources. And then what is really making sure we're paying close attention to our curriculum. That's what we teach, and that's how we teach it. And we're working on what we call alignment. Is it seamless K-12? It's not disjointed, that there is a continuum of teaching and learning of systems happening K-12. So if you're a parent joining us, going all the way back to preschool to the day your child graduates, that there's a system of teaching and learning that happens. And that's a lot of hard work. And that's really our focus right now. And really, it's a key driver, I think, as you're going to see, is as we talk about some changes that we're looking to institute in the near future. So this is just kind of a lens into some of the work that our district leadership team was involved in. And we ran, after we provided a lot of data to them, our financial data, going back in the past, where we're at now, and more importantly, kind of where we're going, enrollment data, and just our capacity, our resource data, from human resources to our structural resources. They had all this information that I'm not sharing all of it with you right now, because that definitely is a lot to go through. But I've also shared it with our board through past and previous presentations, is that they had all of this, and they had information about where we're going as well. So we said, 5 years from now, if we had the opportunity to paint the picture of what Pinckney Community Schools we really want it to look like, if we had the opportunity to just have a pen in hand and paint the picture of what it would look like to be just a great place to, not only for our kids to come to school, but for our teachers to teach and all our employees to work, what would that look like? And so we talked about creating that future. And then we had an opportunity to look upon our past, like, where did we come from? And most importantly, what were the steps we took to get there? This is called the Futures Protocol, where we're starting with the end in mind. And so this group created, just provided a lot of great information. And so I had an opportunity to vet it, to reflect on it, to process it. And I put it together in this format here that I'm going to present to you. It's just themes. There's a lot of recurring themes. This is not the extent of everything they've shared, but I'm just trying to keep it as succinct as possible. And through that, there were 4 themes that were really prevalent in everything that this group provided. And they all focus on our finances, our curriculum, our SEL, and that stands for social emotional learning. That's our emotional well-being of our kids. And then our community. Those are really 4 strong themes or strands that occurred through this process. And so, and I'm not going to read through this, because once again, you can pause this video and you can take a look at it for yourself and read through it. But you can see, what our staff, what they really like is, obviously they want, from a financial standpoint, having a positive fund balance, which is where we're at right now, and hopefully continuing to maintain, and that we have a stable enrollment, that we're maximizing our use of space, and we have optimal class sizes. And we know that because when financial things are tough, class size is going to be bigger than what we want. And, what are those optimal class sizes that we can have effective teaching and learning, that it'll support our budget moving forward. It supports positive contracts for all employees moving forward. That's the sweet spot, and that's where we want to be, and that's where we want to stay, and that's where we wanted to have moving forward. And so, so these are just some of the conversations that we're having. But the key is, when we look at the steps, like, how did we achieve what we painted for our financial future, for our curriculum future? And you can just see some of those right now. In terms of steps, we reduce the number of offerings as we get a little bit smaller as a district. We can't be all things to all people. So we got to focus on what we want to do and how do we do it well. We want to right size the district for staffing capacity, meaning look at our people and looking at the resources we have. And, this work has been ongoing currently. And those of you who've been with us for just the last couple of years, and just in 2020, when COVID hit, we had to make some really tough choices in this district. We had to make that commitment to right size our staff. And, that was something that has been in the conversation, but we didn't have the capacity to do it at the time. And working with our union groups, working with the Department of Treasury, working the MDE, State of Michigan, we really felt like that was the time that we had to do it. And we had to make some hard choices with layoffs. Over 22, 23 teachers, unfortunately, were let go, and we had to make some really tough choices. And they were all great people, because we have great people here. It's never an easy decision, but it was one that was necessary for us to kind of right size our district. to put us in a position where we're at today to be able to move forward. Well, we have to continue looking at that from our capacity within the district, making sure our school buildings are maximized, that we're maximize grade level configurations with a lens towards learning. This one's really a key one, is taking a look at where we're at as a district. Are we maximizing not only our buildings but also our grade levels with that lens towards learning? Ties in the curriculum. These all overlap one way or another. And you can take a look at the curriculum pieces there. I'm going to just transfer over to our, once again, our social emotional strand and then our community strand. Social emotional has always been important here. We've made that commitment years ago through hiring true social workers throughout the district. Our student family specialists, we refer them to. But obviously with the pandemic, it's really put a lens on the social emotional well-being of our students. And we have to continue doing more work, more learning, trauma-based learning. We do a lot of work around anxiety, and just making sure that we're providing as many resources as we can, connecting with our folks at the county level. There's a lot of good work that's going on, but we also know there's a lot of good work that has to continue happening, and then that needs to happen. So continue our work in what we call around what is PBIS, it's positive behavior intervention systems that we have in place for our kids to help support positive decision making, prioritizing mental health, continuing our work around diversity and what does that look like for us here, and equity around those themes here in Pinckney Community Schools. And then obviously one of our strengths is our community here, and strength in furthering the partnerships we have with our businesses and with our business partners to help support and be part of the good things that are happening here in Pinckney Community Schools and in our local community as well. So this is just kind of, once again, a quick snapshot of the work that occurred over several meetings. I'm not doing it justice by just talking about it for 5 or 7 minutes or so, but just kind of seeing these are the things in the conversations that we're driving some of the work that we'll be talking about here in just a second. So we're looking at a 5-year strategic plan overview. We broke it into phases. And as you can see, we have phase 1, which is what I'm really focusing on here, phase 2 and phase 3. And we don't have dates necessarily with these phases, even though phase 1 is the work we're doing now, and we do have a structure and a plan for that in place. But phase 2 and phase 3 really don't, because things are a little bit volatile right now. I say a little bit, probably a lot in some areas. And we really don't know what the future holds. And as we're working through the impacts of having COVID in our lives, and the impacts on schools, on people moving, and our community growing. So we understand that some things may take longer than others, or things may change, and we want to make whatever decision we make. We want to make sure it's the right decision for our district, for our community, going long term. So with that being said, phase 1 incorporates grade configuration. I just talked about maximizing grade configuration with a lens towards learning. That's really what I'm focusing on here in this presentation, with that driver being curriculum alignment. And then we're just starting our SEL vision work at both the county level and at the district level. So that work is just kind of exploratory, investigative right now. But as you can see, phase 2, we want to do some further grade configuration. And honestly, we're not really sure what that's going to look like at this point, but we think we definitely still need to continue that work. Further curriculum alignment, because that is a lot of work. It almost never ends. It's a continuum. And then with the hope of really taking a look at SEL, what does a social emotional curriculum look like, and which one are we going to pick, and what's going to be best for our community, for our kids. That's really phase 2. And phase 3 is then really focusing on that community engagement piece, continuing that work with curriculum alignment, and then with the hope of implementation of the social emotional learning curriculum and the work that we've been spending so much time on. So that's really the phases that that's the framework guiding us moving forward with this 5-year strategic plan moving forward. So let's just go a little further by implementing and then doing this work. The statement that we created is that, once again, going back to our why and our what and our how, is that we're the most valuable resource for our students, families, and community, and we have that financial stability through strategic resource management that will support and foster academic excellence. Those are our pillars. So that's really our goal and our outcome. So let's talk about phase 1 of the plan. So phase 1 is being driven by enrollment, because as we know that we're going to have to make some changes. We've had declining enrollment for many years, and it's been for a variety of reasons. But a lot of it's just the changes of the culture and the climate in this community, the shifts in population, the booming of the evolution of the baby boomers, and just people retirement. And I could do over an hour, 2 hour presentation, which I had in the past, just on enrollment alone. There's a lot of facets that go into it, but we do know that we are still expected to decline, not at the same rates for the next 4 or 5 years, given the data we have. And in the end, we do see it plateauing, see it leveling out. And I'm going to show some of the data here in just a second, around 2,000 students that we're going to probably settle on being a district around 2,000 students. That's plus or minus 100, give or take, which is about 250 less that we're at now. We're about 2,250 students right now. And in the next 5 years, settling into about 2,000 students. And so we need to make sure we're prepared for that, and that we're proactive, we're not reactive to that. If you multiply $8,700 per student times that 250 that we'll have less, that equates to about $2.1 million. So we have to make sure that we structurally are ready for that, that our resource management resources, structural resources, all the resources we have are adjusted for that, so that we continue moving forward. Remember, building that fund equity. We want to make sure that we can support our employees with positive contracts. We want to be a place to recruit great educators moving forward, to retain the great educators we have. That's all part of the plan, the decision making, and the purpose behind this as well. So, because remember, this is what we want to do. We want to foster that academic excellence, and through this, what we've done is we put a lot of ideas up on the board where we have many paths where we think we may need to take as options in the next 5 years. But the truth of the matter is, regardless of whatever path we have kind of brainstormed and thrown up on the wall, none of them they all included, I should back up, they all included the transitioning of having 6th grade at Navigator move to Pathfinder. And so with that being said, we want to make this step one of our phase one plan that we have in place for the 2022 and 23 school year, is that we do feel that it's appropriate. It is the right time. And for all the reasons I'm going to show you moving forward, to move our students who are attending 6th grade at Navigator to having 6th grade at Pathfinder School. So, and that would begin for next school year. So we'll talk about the transition and what that means. And so what that would look like for parents is, if you have a current 5th grader, and obviously the current 6th grader, they're already planning on moving over. But if you're a parent of a current 5th grader Navigator, next year they will make that transition to Pathfinder 1 year earlier. And we understand the worry, concerns, anxiety that may come with that, and that's all part of our planning moving forward. We feel that this is a great move for a variety of reasons: academically, extracurricular, from athletic, from a leadership standpoint, and taking all the things in consideration, and all some of the things that parents may have worries about, and really building that in. And if you're a child of the 80s like myself, I came from back then a junior high that 6th and 7th and 8th grade. That's a model that a lot of us are familiar with. It's not uncommon in education, and from a curriculum standpoint, really makes the best sense of us moving forward. So let's start talking about that. But before I get to that, I don't want to skip this slide. This is really important, because this is the driver that I want to share. And if you're not in this educational world, and even if you are, you're not familiar with Middle Cities. And Middle Cities is an extensive, thorough report we get each and every year that forecasts enrollment, and it's based on birth rate, community dynamics, patterns that they're seeing, and it's predictors that give us data 5 years out. And we look at it each and every year, and they give us different models. They have what they call Model 1, Model 2, Model 3. Model 1 is generally the most conservative, severe in terms of enrollment. Model 2 will generally be kind of the average, and Model 3 will be the least in terms of conservative. And they're all very similar, give or take, but that's what we look at, and they're actually extremely pretty close. It's hard to believe that they are, but they give us a good kind of forecast of what we need to be ready for. For instance, I have 3 charts here up on the screen, and the first column, you can see they're broken up into how our configuration is currently created in the district. And the first one on the top is method 1, the method 2 in the middle, and method 3. If you look at method 2 right now in that first column, it has 2,245. That's where method 2 forecasts us to be. And like I said earlier in this presentation, we're at 2,250. Only 5 off of that, 5 more in the plus, which is good. But that is where we're at. Honestly, when we budget from a financial standpoint, we use the most conservative because we don't we don't want to get burned, and we'd actually have rather be better off. And the Department of Treasury has instructed us over the past that's what we need to use. So from a budget standpoint, we actually budgeted for 2,199. So those folks know that, so that our student enrollment came out 2,250, which is where our staffing had to be, because I think that's where we knew we were to be. But from a budgetary standpoint, trying to be extremely conservative, which is definitely the right thing to do. And I think that's been a big part of why we're doing so much better than what we anticipated at this time financially in our budget. But just going through this, you can see if you go to the very last column, that is year 25-26, 2025, 2026. And you can see that one enrollment has us at 1,962 students. The next one is at 2,059, and the last is 2,013. So they're all relatively close. The pattern you'll see is that the rate of enrollment gets very small from year to year. From looking at around 15 kids difference from 24 25 to 25 26. So you can see the trend. And if you see that graph, that with the different color lines that you have there representing method 1 to method 2 and method 3, you can definitely see that the trends all are following the same pattern. And also you can see how they're starting to level out, especially those last years of 25 26. And that's really what we're looking for, is that stability. Still a little bit of a trend, but you can see that rate is getting to the point where it's definitely far more manageable, and it's easier to plan when things are definitely more stable. So that's what we're looking at. That's what we're trying to prepare for. And we want to be proactive and not wait till we get there and saying, uh-oh, now what? Or we're not ready for that, or our budget is not aligned with our human resources, our strategic resources, or our structural resources, I should say. So looking at the need and the necessity to transition 6th grade over to Pathfinder is really driven by curriculum, and once again, that's our business, that's our craft, that's what we have control over, and how we teach things and where we teach it. And so for those who don't know, I mean, curriculum standards are things that we're given from the state of Michigan. Those are things we have to teach. Those are things that we're assessed on the M-STEP, and those are it's the guide for our teachers to then instruct all this information and share it with our students in the classroom. So from a standard standpoint, a curriculum standpoint, grades 6 through 8 are all considered to be aligned under secondary. 6th grade standards are not really tied to elementary standards. And so that changes in terms of, the instructional methods, how we provide PD, how we support our teachers, because obviously students are changing from their adolescent development, from their brain development, especially when you get to 6th grade, and the level of the standards are really aligned with 6, 7, and 8. One great instance is that next bullet is MyStar. MyStar is a science program that ties into the new science standards. We call them next generation science standards that are great. It's about hands-on, exploratory, experimental. It's good stuff that our teachers have been trained in and trying to. It's a big shift in what we've done before. But the way the training and the curriculum standpoint is broken up in 6 to 8. So we have 6 to 8 MyStar standards for and curriculum for our teachers. And then K through 5, we're using something called phenomenal science, which is great in its own right, very similar, but it's different. And so when we have 6th grade mixed in with that, at a building such as Navigator that's 4, 5, and 6, makes it difficult because teachers are kind of on an island by themselves. We have to do PD. We have to try to send somebody over there to work with the Navigator teachers. Our times are aligned. It's just not cohesive. It's not seamless, and that impacts our ability to provide a quality instruction. And so quality instruction goes directly to our professional development, our supportive teachers. And so that's a major driver there. So that ties into that third bullet of providing adequate professional development for our staff in grades 6 through 8. Even teacher certifications, and then we're trying to hire teachers. 6th grade is now part of the secondary group in terms of what they're certified to teach. So it's now K5 and 6-8. So we try to be as versatile with our staff as possible. So if we hire a teacher in 6th grade, they're more actually apt to teach in secondary. So when they get put into an elementary, that limits our flexibility to be able to utilize them. And so that's a detriment to us. Once again, being resourceful with our human resources is an important part of us and the work we have to do. And we want to be strategic with that. And this allows us and gives us a little more freedom and flexibility with that. And then what I said, strengthen vertical alignment. Vertical alignment is our grades going through that chain, K all the way to 12. And we do a lot of trying to do more work with our 7 through 12 teachers and looping in 6th grade and having that vertical alignment 6-12 is essential. So having that from pre-K to 5 is great. And then having it 6 through 12, I think will be an asset to us. And so this is from a curriculum standpoint, from an instructional program, there's definitely some benefits. And, and I'm going to start with, I think one of our major pride points is our music program. Pinckney Community Schools has always had an outstanding music program, first program in the county, have a full orchestra. And just we've been extremely proud. And hopefully, if you've been on the campus here between Pathfinder and Navigator, you see the commitment we made with our 2010 bond by creating what we call a fine arts center, the connector, just great spaces for our students to learn, not only in those areas, but in the area of arts, such as the entire fine arts. But also at the same time, we need to be realistic as with our enrollment drop, with the pandemic, with just changes in teaching and staff, that our music program has suffered. And it's not to where we want it to be, where I know it can be, and where it should be. And so this is a major driver of me personally, and just the commitment we have in this district to support these programs. And so what we'd like to do is to be able to provide our 6th graders these opportunities in music each and every day. And right now, the way the program's structured at Navigator, we can't do that. And we definitely think it's having a negative impact on the overall program, which is a feeder program. And so by moving 6th graders over to Pathfinder, we can provide those students who are in band, orchestra, or choir program, music every day, and which is essential in their growth. And then hopefully getting them connected, feeling good, getting proficient, that then they stay with the program from there on out. And when I look at a district of our size of 2,000, if we can provide a quality music program from 6th grade all the way to 12th grade, I think that's outstanding and that's adequate and that's appropriate for where we're at. And so we're excited about that. In terms of physical movement, I know, coming from an elementary, kids are used to recess and, that time, but we also see that 6th graders, start using that time a little bit differently as they get a little bit older. They're entering adolescence, on the verge of becoming a teenager. But that sense of movement is still critical to their brain development, their growth, and just being humans in a learning environment. So we want to provide our 6th graders with phys ed every day. That's kind of that structured recess where they get movement, they get a chance to not only learn good, healthy lifetime activities, but have that opportunity to get their heart rate up, get some exercise, and be active. And so we're looking forward to that opportunity as well. We want to be able to provide more what we call exploratory opportunities, and just things that at an elementary we just can't do. We have great resources and just facilities at the Pathfinder building that we can get our 6th graders connected to a little bit earlier. In terms of special education programs, we have great specific programs at Pathfinder that we have utilized at Navigator and will continue to do so in terms of very specific and supporting students with autism, emotional impairments. And so we're going to continue growing that, and it allows us to do that even with greater fidelity for those students, especially our 6th graders coming in. And also we have a fantastic what's called a peer-to-peer program where we use our general education students to help support students with challenges that are connected to autism in terms of their social interactions and social development. We've had our students go over and work with our Navigator students, and having more students at Pathfinder allows us to have that program be more impactful, be more extensive with our students. And so we're excited about the opportunities here from instructional program, from strategic resource management. Pathfinder is the old Pinckney High School. It's a great facility. It is the hub, this whole complex of the majority of our community events and even athletics, and then the amount of people that come through here. But the truth of the matter is right now, this building has a capacity of 1,200 students, and only having the 7th and 8th grade, it's servicing 306 kids. So we have more than enough room to be creative, to support our students, and then some. So, so we wanted to utilize this space as much as possible. It allows us, for future design or wherever the future may take us. It's really hard. We don't have a crystal ball, but we still have an opportunity to use the space differently in the future if we feel that's necessary and that's really appropriate. Once again, I just stated Navigator and Pathfinder are the greatest district community resources for our community, athletics, and for our fine arts and for our senior citizens. And so we want to make sure we maximize this space here. And then also when we talk about looking at our teachers being strategic in our resource management, by combining what I just talked about, band, orchestra, choir, and even taking a look at art and PE, we can utilize our staff, I think, even more efficiently. There's nothing to say that we can't mix grades with some of these classes. You know, they have 6th and 7th graders in the same band, orchestra, choir, art, PE class. Smaller districts, and one of them just one of our neighbors to the east, Whitmore Lake, is it's hard to sustain grade level classes in all these areas. You just don't have the numbers, or you don't right now. We don't have the staff, the human resources. So you have to be creative, and that's okay. We get in this box in education, think that this is how everything has to look, and if you work outside your area, you'll find out that many schools don't do it that way. They can do it differently and do it just as well. And so we can maximize our human resources by blending some of this, and especially like a choir. There's nothing to say that we can't have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders all in the same choir. The more voices you have in choir, just the more powerful that those voices and that program can become. So we're going to use this as an opportunity to maximize these for students and for our staff. In terms of culture, we understand that 6th graders are different than 7th graders and 8th graders. There's not much different, but obviously there is development. There's a huge development when, from a 6th grader all the way to 8th graders, as 8th graders getting ready for high school. And we understand that. We do a lot of work around brain development, adolescent development, and so structuring a program that supports that, but also nurtures that transition as these kids and our students do go through this adolescent change that they experience in middle school. So, our preference would be we would want to maintain 6th grade teachers. We have fantastic 6th grade teachers. They're experts. They've been doing it for a long time. And our preference would be to have them just kind of come on over and pick up wherever they left off and help be part of this great new opportunity to build a program. But at the same time, we know that there may be some teachers who are teaching 4th and 5th grade that want to make this change, and they taught 6th grade in the past. And so we want to allow this, and I'll talk about this at the end, of allowing this as an opportunity for people to experience something new, to take on a new challenge and be part of something special. So, but this is just kind of our initial preference going in. Because of the space we have at Pathfinder, we can create a dedicated wing. Actually, we're looking at the whole, what we call east wing of the school, that we can dedicate to 6th grade teachers. And so making sure that we're focusing on those kiddos there. We're actually in the process of working with our bond, and then with the money that we have available to us, to create large classrooms. We have traditional classrooms. We have a lot of big classrooms at Pathfinder, which are great, but we also have some that are smaller than we would like. And so teaching kids space is important, how we utilize that space. And so we're already in the process of working with construction managers to look at ways to knock down walls, open up spaces for new 6th grade classes to come in. So teachers have just a great learning space to do what they need to do and support the teaching and learning happening in those classrooms. We, at the same time, we want to, once again, I spoke about fostering independence, helping support our students as they grow into young adolescents, but at the same time maintaining nurturing environment. We understand these kids are 10 years old, 11-year-old, become 12-year-olds as they transition here, and with that impacts how we teach, how we learn, how we support, how we encourage, how we mentor. And so that'll be part of their program as well. Providing leadership opportunities. There's great opportunities that come about from transitioning to more of a middle school model. And then also just a great program that Mrs. Curvin's been essential in facilitating. Mrs. Curvin, who actually was a navigator teacher, came over to the Pathfinder, doing a phenomenal job for us here for many years, with a program called Web, where everyone belongs. And it's very similar to a program we've had at high school called Link, where we connect our more experienced students in 8th grade to help be mentors, be role models, be support for those students coming in transition. And we'll definitely be utilizing this extensively. We did it this year. My own 8th grade son is a Web member, in helping students feel comfortable, having a go-to person, a student they can ask questions to about how things go in the school, utilizing that. But more importantly, too, at the same time, we're taking a look at Navigator. And although we're going to pay very close attention to what it looks like for 6th graders coming to Pathfinder, we also then want to turn attention to, okay, what opportunities are there for Navigator? And Navigator, the focus that we want to turn through this transition is to become a true elementary program, really focusing on elementary teaching practices, what we call best practices. And for next year, it will remain a 4 or 5 elementary program. And when it's not an upper elementary, it's an elementary program. And I'll be very honest and transparent with you, is Navigator's always had a difficult time trying to find its identity. No fault of their own. It's just when you mix that kind of diverse grade level and adolescent level from a 4th grader to a 6th grader, it can become a little gray. It's ambiguous a little bit, and that's not uncommon in other districts who have similar models. And what we would like to do is really create clarity, and for our staff, for our students, for our parents, is that we want Navigator School to be just a true elementary school, and not really kind of mix what we've been doing for several years. And so we think that will help, and once again help with the transition, even when students are coming from Farley Country to Navigator. Now, as I stated, it's 4-5 for next year. Because we don't know, once again, our phases and when those will be implemented, phase 2, as I referred to earlier in this, we'll take a look at further grade configurations. And so I'm going to be very honest, is we are talking about the potential of having third grade join Navigator. It could even incorporate second grade, 2, 3, 4, 5. But we're just not sure yet. There's a lot of things we're thinking through, some things that we have to take a look in terms of our data, the knowns. With those goals, financial stability and academic excellence, strategic resource management, all those pieces are in place. What's going to put us in the best position to have Pinckney Community Schools be poised to be successful from 2025 on, for the next decades and generations ahead? So that's really our goal, and we just don't know exactly what the best way of going about that is. There's a lot of ideas. We're putting everything on the table, and we're exploring all options. There's some unknowns that we're not sure of. I mean, right now from the state level, they're talking about universal preschool for everybody. I think it's a fabulous thing. I think there are states who are doing that, such as Vermont, and you see direct results from that. And I think that's got some serious legs. And if that happens, that would change how we have to look at school, even at the K-3 schools that we have, because we need space for that. So those are things that we're kind of waiting and seeing. We're going to have to make a decision sooner or later, but there's some unknowns that we're trying to work through at this time. So just being totally honest and transparent, that's our next step, to take a look at, okay, what are our viable options? And then at a point, we're gonna have to make a decision of what's the best way to move forward as a district and as a community. So for parents bringing their kiddos into sixth grade, there's great opportunities that middle schools do provide. And we know that a lot of parents who are looking for schools look at extracurricular activities, athletic opportunities. We talked about the fine arts opportunities from our music program. Those are already in place. But even from athletics, most middle schools in the SEC, that's our conference that we're a part of, have sixth grade sports and competitions. We're one of the few that don't have a lot. And we've been trying to incorporate our sixth graders in some of our sports. It's been a challenge because it's not seamless. Our schedules are different. It's not as clean and opportunistic as I think it can be. So with this, we can have sixth graders be fully engaged in sports such as cross country, track and field, our wrestling program, archery program, swimming, girls field hockey. We have esports here. We have academic opportunities for students, such as what we call SEMLA. That's our middle school version of SEC. But we have a regional spelling bee competition. We have Quiz Bowl. We have geography bee. So there's things that our students can start being engaged with at the sixth grade level that they just don't have an opportunity to currently. So we think that's a great advantage for sixth graders and families moving into the area as well who are looking for a school. And from a financial standpoint, these are things that we're currently working on, because we want, like, what's the financial benefit? And right off, moving sixth grade to Pathfinder isn't about a financial move. Now, there can be some financial implications for the positive, because if we create a great model here and great opportunities, I think it would attract more families and students looking for a quality school for their sixth graders. And so that's always a motivation and a possibility. But also, I talked about being efficient with staff and taking a look at how can we be resourceful with staff and creating classes that have mixed grades. That actually has a benefit to our bottom line as well. This is not a decision right now being driven by financial means, but it definitely can have some positive financial implications. Now, obviously, long-term, finances are a key driver, because as enrollment goes down, as I stated, going to a district of 2,000 kids, that definitely has a direct financial implication. But this decision right now is really about curriculum, opportunities, being strong, and achieving that goal of academic excellence with a lens towards grade configuration. So that's that piece there. Obviously, one thing to be impacted, and this is a plus as well, I'm already working with our transportation department and Mrs. Sue Miller, our director, is that we have the capacity to do this. And actually, there's benefits to this. Right now, our buses, even with COVID, are pretty full at the K-6 level. there's not a lot of extra room. And I know there's a lot of parents still driving their kids, but believe it or not, we have strong ridership on these buses right now, and we don't have a lot of room to grow in this area. So it's only going to get, I think, worse in terms of capacity and getting crowded, and that concerns me because our numbers district wide K6 are look to be consistent. They're not going to go down. If we see the change is really happening more at the secondary level, at the high school level. So so right now, I want to be able to create that opportunity to be able to have some growth. And moving sixth graders off the K6 routes right now will help that. So there'll be K5 buses. Will provide a little more space for that. So I think that's a plus. Our ridership from our 712 right now is low. Only about 20% of high schoolers ride the bus because obviously as they get older, they're driving, they carpool. It's just that's pretty consistent across the board. So we have more than enough room to have our sixth graders. And I know parents will always worry because we tend to think the worst that hey, they're going to be on there with older kids. Since we've went to 712, it's actually gone really well. And with COVID, we have assigned seats. The younger students always sit in front. We've never had an instance where older high school kids have ever bothered our middle school students. So we have this practice in place. I know parents worry about it. I personally don't. Districts like Dexter have K-12. They have kindergartners on the bus with their high school students. They have one run K-12 students, and they do a hub. So once again, districts even very close as Dexter are doing a little bit differently. And I know we can do this. It's not a reason not to do it by any means. And because of COVID, we are very structured in how we do seat assignments. That is a practice we want to keep in place. So definitely, I think a great opportunity moving forward. Also for parents who are driving their kids or utilize latchkey, we don't want this to have a negative impact on that. And just to kind of let you know, at Pathfinder, we have students being dropped off fairly early in the morning, and they can be dropped off and remain in the commons. They sit and they do homework. They maybe listen to their music on their phones, and they remain in one spot. And that can be, generally at about 7 a.m. The students start coming in, and at the same time, I know some parents may need to drop their kids off at 6:30 because they have to head, farther to work. We are still going to be able to utilize the Navigator latchkey services. And so they would just go to the Navigator for latchkey. If they're a sixth grader, when it's appropriate time, they would leave and just walk down the hallway and, get ready for class at Pathfinder. So this model, if anything, it actually help parents because once again, there's an option to drop the kiddos off at Pathfinder because we start school here a little bit earlier there, but also the latchkey service at Navigator will still be available. So next steps. This is just a timeline that we've been working on. You can see that this is all very structured. It's all very intentional. And some dates have already been passed, but you can see where we're at with this presentation here. Last week, I met with the Navigator staff and shared this entire presentation with them. And that was the 12th of November. At the board meeting, just a day or so ago, depending on when you're watching this, on the November 18th, I've shared this presentation. Shared it with the Pathfinder staff on the 19th during their PD. And then you can see following then sharing it on the 19th as well, pushing out this video message to the rest of our district and also bigger and broader part of our community as well. So then the work starts. So we still have a lot of work to do as we are getting what we call our BLTs. Those are building level leaders or building leadership teams getting together at both Navigator and Pathfinder. Because we're really looking about the program. Like, what do we want the experience for our sixth graders, seventh graders, and eighth graders to look like at Pathfinder? So the next step is really December 9th for the Board of Education to put a formal stamp of approval in terms of doing this. They're getting a presentation on the 18th, but then really making sure that they're good with what we're doing and how we're doing it, and putting their stamp of approval on December 9th. And then focusing on our professional development for our staff with the plan of full implementation with fall of 2022. So we'll be sharing more with parents down the road in terms of transition and having an opportunity for questions. And that's part of this fact session here. For our teachers, kind of FYI, people are always like, well, who's going to move? Who's coming over? And how does that process work? What we're looking at is obviously we have our existing teachers at Navigator. We have a list of certifications, who can teach what and where at what levels, because that does vary. And so we'll be tapping into that. But we're also looking at this once again as an opportunity. If anything, I'd love just to have volunteers, people who are able, based on their certifications, saying, yes, I want to be part of that. That sounds exciting. I'm ready for a change. I'm ready to be part of something special, building something new. And so we've already had some people express some interest to that. So that's really our go-to is just, having an application process, teachers expressing their interest, and building it from there. And obviously, if we don't get all the pieces of the puzzle that we need, then we will need to assign folks based on our certification what we think would be the best fit moving forward. So that's really kind of our thought process behind that. You can see the timeline there of what we're looking for. In terms of when teachers move, we have a great custodial and maintenance staff that definitely helps with that. Obviously, teachers are generally more than willing and wanting to pack up their own things because a lot of it's personal items, but we definitely will move that when the time is appropriate. And then, moving forward, once again, there's a process there that I alluded to some of this already, utilizing our PD times. We put the start and end times to the Pathfinder on there, so both our staff are aware. Because sometimes teachers may want to make a change based on their own personal needs and their childcare needs. They have their own kids; they have to get to childcare, and sometimes starting earlier and ending earlier is more conducive to their own personal routines and schedules. So, in terms of a transition process, down the road, Mrs. Keeler and myself definitely want to be able to hold at least one, if not multiple, community forums. Opportunity for sixth grade parents and fifth grade parents to have just ask questions. The what ifs, or did you think about, or I'm not sure about how this or may look. And so that will definitely be coming in the months ahead. We're going to have our usual grade level orientation registration days. They're definitely be a little more extensive because we're going to be looking at fifth grade students and fifth grade parents as well. Just opportunities for people to be in Pathfinder, to walk the halls, to take a look at some of the things that we've been talking about. Question answer for parents on our website, making sure our website is communicating this information effectively. And once again, looking at that sixth grade wing and some of the construction and the work that we have planned in place that we're currently exploring at this time. So that's what we have. We're going to continue updating this information. We're getting great feedback from our teachers. It was great being with the Navigator staff last week and just some of the questions they're offering. And obviously I'll get some more questions and feedback from our Board of Education, and even as our community is involved as well, and our parents. And so that is the long, and it is long, the long and short of phase one that we're looking for. And once again, fully aware that things of this sort can bring some questions, bring some anxieties, bring some worries, but at the same time, this is a great opportunity, and that's kind of how we view things here. It's how I view things as a leader, is that change is all about opportunity, and we can always kind of get on that edge and think the worst and all the what ifs, but I don't want to get on the edge, but I do like to say the what ifs in terms of opportunities and possibilities. And it's an exciting time for Phoenix Community Schools. It's been hard, it's been challenging, but there's a lot of great work happening, and there's a lot of great work that's continuing to happen. And there's the light is bright at the end of the tunnel, and my team has done a great job. Assistant Superintendent Jamie Cowan and Assistant Superintendent Basha Keeler in helping put this plan together, helping get us to where we need to be from a financial standpoint, and the rest of the staff who've been doing all the extremely hard work with the boots on the ground and in the classroom and within our schools, from our principals to, once again, our support staff. So excited for what lies ahead. So this is the presentation. There'll be other opportunities to, I'm sure, have some dialogues around this. So if you watch this from beginning to end, thank you. If you watch this, if it took you a week or a month, thank you. And if people have questions, steer them to this video. And it's comprehensive. It's a lot of good information, but hopefully you've had an insight, kind of our vision, our thinking, our work, our rationale, and really our desire to make Phoenix Community Schools, once again, the greatest resource for our students, for our parents, for our staff, and for the broader community as a whole. So thank you once again. As always, take care and go Pirates.